you don't get what you've prayed for, you get the opportunity to practice what you've prayed for. So you might be praying for more patience and stillness, and then you might meet the irrational guy in the garage when you're putting fuel in, and he just comes up and he's all up in your face, and you're like, whoa, I'm gonna have to have patience with this person. It's about recognizing those moments, isn't it?
I think it would be interesting for the audience and for the listener if you was just to kind of paint a picture of your life when you was younger, growing up, and to the point where you found philosophy or Stoicism. Like for me, I was a labourer earning way less than minimum wage. And I just hated life. I was such a miserable, had my head down, miserable, weak, lost. And then I found the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. It wasn't this exact copy, and it just opened my eyes to a different way of I can live. I actually realized I can live life on my terms. You've probably heard about the block, the idea of you handed this wooden block that's your life, and I believe this is my block, this is my life. I'm stuck being miserable, hating life, and that's just me. But then philosophy opened my eyes. I have the tools to shape that block. I have the tools to shape my life. So I think it would be interesting to, if you can just paint a picture of your life from wherever you feel comfortable to finding Stoicism.
Absolutely. So for me, I had a bit of a rough upbringing, not really of anyone's fault, really, just separation between mother and father, and that led to bad relationships between them. So I had a bad relationship with myself as a result, but also with my parents. And this led to acting out as a teenager, as a youth, kind of getting into lots of trouble. I'd have said I was really hedonistic. I would do everything to the nth degree. And I was if it was pleasurable at all, I was going to do it until it was no longer pleasurable, until I made myself unwell with it, or just was really following that adrenaline path. I was just going for anything that gave me some sort of feeling. You could call it escapism, but I was searching for something. And I would have said I was experimenting at the time. And within that, I was just lost in that, I was just going from job to job, such as yourself. I was a labourer, I was a scaffolder for a lot of years, and I really hated it. And don't get us wrong, I had some great times with that too. I can't say every day was a bad day, but I really hated the role. I felt like it was, I was getting no pleasure out of it. I felt like I was just, a wheel in a cog in a wheel, cog in a machine. And I just really didn't enjoy it. So I didn't really find Stoicism until I found Muay Thai. So Muay Thai kind of saved me. It saved me from getting in trouble on nights out. It saved me from drinking drugs. And it wasn't a straight path. I was sort of in a dance between going to Muay Thai. I was around about 19 and training a lot, and then competing, and then going back to the drinking, drugs and partying. And then you'd have an 8-week camp where I was training and competing. And it was that dance for a little while until the philosophy side sort of caught up, So I sort of hit this phase where I was reading a lot, meditating a lot, and I would be looking into lots of philosophy. So I was reading yogic texts. I was reading Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I was reading Jack Canfield's 100 Principles to Success. Sort of accumulate without applying it, which I wasn't applying it completely. It wasn't until I found Stoicism on my own, and just the lessons throughout the text, they were just so relatable. I was so relatable. Even though his life was completely separate to mine, of a different era, and also of a different stature and different wealth, and it was just these lessons all applied to my life. And as I applied them, slowly but surely, I was alarm bells were screaming, that's what I've been missing. I'm not applying the philosophy to my life that I'm reading about all the time. So the ones that it really helped with were for example, overindulgence in pleasures. I was going to do it all. I was if I was lusting, I was going to lust as much as I can. If I was drinking, I was going to drink until I was really, just partying all the time. So that really helped with that putting a cap on the pleasures and understanding that your pleasures are your vices too. And then sort of the rest kind of trickle feeded down, that discipline filtered into other areas of my life,
Yeah, what's interesting actually is my path was quite similar, I hated life, in short, and then I found Stoicism. But it wasn't instantly my life was oh, brilliant, I'm a Stoic. It was, I went from hating my life, finding Stoicism. I saved up all my money that I could and went to New Zealand for a while. And I was kind of just in between, learning about Stoicism, but not really practicing it. I think something that you said that's quite important there is I don't think Stoicism really actually influenced my life until I read the text and went, actually put that into my life, really do this thing. And then when I started actually doing what this, like you said about Seneca, is like relatable, even though his life's completely different. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, but I'm reading him and I'm like, it's like talking to a friend. Like it makes complete sense. But it's that application that once you actually stop doing what they're saying, then your life will turn around. What was it that was like kind of pushing you away from the hedonistic life? Like what was there a thought at the back of your mind that thought like, I want more for myself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a running theme throughout my life. I was always wanted something more than what I was doing. And I felt like almost cheated in a way, and in the text, they're always talking about like, fate being one of these things like it's like a mistress, like you could be fated with lots of money. That's because let's say you get a lottery win, and you're given the opportunity of the lottery win, but like it gets taken away from you, and you should still be thankful that you have it. Whereas I wasn't even appreciative for the money I was earning from my wage at the job. Like I was earning all right money, and I was just coming home. I was miserable. I didn't really felt like the crack or the conversations at work were beneath me and stuff, which was quite I suppose rude in a way. Like I'm kind of not. Life was here, and I was like bumping against it. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't integrate into it, even though I could have done, if I'd had applied that Stoic wisdom at the time. And I was always wanting more. And don't get us wrong, I think that's great to want more. I feel like we should work on ourselves and grow and change and stuff. But there's also this place of surrender where you've got to surrender to what is and be very thankful for what you've got right now. And the gratitude wasn't there. I think they relate to it in the text quite often. I think Epictetus said this, and he says, no, it's Seneca, and he said that like gratitude is the mother of all virtues. And I think that's probably the first, and even in spiritual teachings, they teach you that gratitude is first and foremost. Think about how you'd like pray over your food if you were a Christian, like they give gratitude to their food before they eat. It's probably the first port of call when it comes to living a virtuous life or a life more in sync with nature and yourself.
It's interesting you say gratitude. That was the first, I was about to say, that's the first principle of Stoicism that I actually practiced and actually had an influence on my life. It was when this studio I'm in, it was like a dream of mine and my brothers to get this studio. And, we was quite poor. There was 7 boys actually, seven siblings and a single mom. And we started this company in like a loft space, like a triangle. There also, in between the eaves, we had my mattress and my brother Luke's mattress. And then me, John, and Luke were in this space, saving all our labouring money, putting it to computers so we could edit. And I remember I was like, when I get this studio, it will change everything. I'll be happy. I'll be confident. I'll have direction. And then sure enough, we got the studio and I just felt just as empty. And I used to walk like 40 minutes to this studio every morning. And it just felt empty. So I thought, I was like, right, I'll actually try and practice gratitude. And I learned a technique from Tony Robbins, watching one of his videos. And it was just priming. So you think of 3 things you're happy about and 3 things you're excited for. And I just think like, I'm happy I can breathe fresh air and walk. And I'd really feel it. And then after a few weeks doing this, the emptiness went and I was like, life felt good. So I think an interesting question to ask you actually would be, what was the first principle or quote that you took from Stoicism and like started to actually put into your life?
I just said it would be quotes and like phrases around pleasures being a vice, not just to come back to it, but like it was really the one that I needed the most at the time. I was just like, I was loose, if you like, like I would get greedy, I would lose myself to anger, to lust, and just to chasing, temporary highs, like that instant gratification. So as soon as I sort of got that in check, like you say, it wasn't an overnight, production. It happened in time. Once I got that in check, the others followed. I'd kind of been practicing gratitude anyway because I'd sort of stumbled upon The Secret prior to all this, to Stoicism and to yogic philosophy. And I was kind of doing like in and out, but it wasn't until I realized, like yourself, that gratitude was one of those things that we had to be gratitude with the smallest things. I was kind of like well-wishing with gratitude. So I was doing gratitude with the premise of like getting more, which kind of defeats the object because you really want to be grateful for where you are, who you are, what you've got right now, so that you can really be present. Also, as well, is the link between I think another one that really hit me hard was the link between being present and meditation, like actual meditations, not just the meditation, like meditations in the aspect of Stoicism, where he talks about meditation, like the book's called Meditations, but I suppose at the time that meant to come and sit with your thoughts and be with your thoughts. But now it's kind of like more literal. It's like come and actually sit and be with your thoughts and close your eyes and get into a state of meditation. But same, but different, right? And it was the link between Zen philosophy and yogic philosophy and Stoic philosophy was be present at all times, you know. And if you're, Seneca says, you can't be everywhere, you know. If a man's everywhere, he's kind of not anywhere. So it was that as well. The link really settled it for me that like Stoicism was going to be the philosophy that I'm going to try and enact and live through, because it was like, well, they're all talking about the same thing in a way, but Stoicism had those extra steps where it was like you said, this is so relatable. If I implement it into my life is definitely going to change.
Yeah, I think you're right, it's the relatability, because the more I've kind of gone backwards to you, I've read all the Stoic text, and then I've like started getting into Zen and Buddhism, can't think off the top of my head, but like just, you know, Taoism, just like looking around just out of pure interest. And then I always come to the realization, I was like, they're kind of all teaching the same thing. But at the place I was in my life, I needed Stoicism. I needed like the emperor, or I needed Epictetus, who was a slave. Like when I heard his words, it was so relatable, because I was like, they're not some wise sage. He was at some point a slave, and he is talking about living a good life. And my life was considerably better. Like I'd actually had a good life. There was like not much to complain about. It was obviously just a mindset, and that's what the Stoics say. It's like it's not the things that upset us. It's our opinion about things. And my opinion about life was just not a good opinion. Reading Epictetus saying these stuff, I'm like, if he can make that mindset shift, surely I can.
Yeah.
In your life today, how are you incorporating Stoicism on your day-to-day? And I suppose it's for people that aren't so involved in Stoicism, like I was a while ago, I thought like personally for me, you might say it different actually. I just think you like sort of become Stoic, carry everything at once. But that I was doing that wrong. Now I'll sort of like read a passage and incorporate that for a while, and start just one passage or one principle will stick to me for about a month, and then it sort of soaks into your lifestyle, I suppose. So what is that principle right now for you?
Yeah, actually, it was idle gossip. I think I read Epictetus's discourses recently, and just right at the end of his last book, he talks about not giving away your secrets just to anyone, because they won't keep the secrets like you'll keep secrets. So don't expect yourself from other people. And it's not because other people are bad people, but because they're so entrenched in, I suppose, habitual gossiping or just sharing the secrets. And it was like, just be more mindful about what you say to people and more present in what you say to people. And I'm like you, I'm like going from lesson to lesson, bouncing in and out of Stoicism, not because I'm not trying to live stoically, but like, I think Marcus Aurelius alluded to it. Like, you know, if you weren't stoic today, be stoic tomorrow. You know, at least try and be better the next day. And it's quite easy to lose yourself to maybe not so much a fit of passion, but like to emotion, or maybe you say the wrong thing, or you weren't your best self in that moment, and you've just got to come back to it. But for me, yeah, right now it's like, just be mindful about what you say to people, because it's easy to give away all the gifts and all the ideas and all the secrets about your personal life. You know, some things should be kept in home, some things should be kept between you and your partner, some things should be kept between you and your business partner. And it's easy to lose yourself to that, I suppose, to joy or elation or excitement, and to just give the keys away to the castle, as it were. Not that people are bad people. I suppose they're not saying that people are bad people. They're saying that not everyone has your best interests at heart, you know. So it's, instead of trying to differentiate who that is, just say less.
Yeah, it's like, also like you're saying, people aren't bad people. I'll read a passage that's been on my mind quite a lot recently, but it talks about understanding the nature of people and like why they are like this. It's not necessarily, they're not bad because they want to. No one wants to be bad. No one thinks they're bad, but it can be due to their upbringing or ignorance or like a moral blindness. So yeah, I'll read this passage because it's been stuck with me for about 2 weeks now. And the idea I get, this is like dealing with a rude person, like someone's being rude. And I've started, I'll think about this passage to me. I try and do it all the time, actually, in every moment, just to really soak it in. But hurry to your own directing mind, to the mind of the whole, and to the mind of this particular man. To your own mind, to make its understanding just. To the mind of the whole, to recall what you are a part of. To this man's mind, to see whether there is ignorance or design. And at the same time, to reflect that his is a kindred mind. Which I think it's really helped me recently. Because, like I'm dealing with... not even rude people, just maybe someone like annoys me. It could actually be, that could be on me. You don't know. So you reflect on yourself, and like I've been, Stoicism teaches to live in accordance with virtue. So I'm like, if I can just not get caught up in this and act in accordance with virtue, that's good. And then I reflect on the whole, like I see it as like a community, like a cosmic community. We're all a part of this. We're in this together. And then I reflect on this person. I'm like, are they being rude? I don't know. Is that my judgment? Are they speaking a certain way because they were raised that certain way? Are they misinformed? Are they am I misinformed? Like I sort of go through this list of all the stuff, and then he says, or is this by design? Like, is this rude person? It could be part of your path. This is like your fate. This rude person has come to teach you something or lead you somewhere, and that's like how I incorporate Stoicism. It's how I've always incorporated Stoicism, but it's a bit more rigid than it used to be. And I think after like a month or 2 months of doing this, naturally when something happens to me, it just like happens, like which is great. I know you've obviously you said like Muay Thai helped you and other philosophies, but could you say confidently that Stoicism has changed your life or it's shaped your life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think Stoicism filled the blanks in where I needed them, and a lot of what was taught in the other philosophies actually is mirrored in Stoicism anyway. So it was like there were the parts I needed, there was like the hedonism, I say, like it was like, limit those pleasures, they are vices. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right, they are, and like I really need that at the time. It's funny what you were saying actually about how you might think you were talking about this list you go through, and the last port of call was actually like, is this university sent to me and something I'm being faced with and a challenge I must overcome? And I think like that's mirrored in other philosophies as well. It's like, they are your teacher. And I think like, and it's a great point to come back to, because like they really are like your teacher, and if your annoyance comes up in you about someone else, half the time, I suppose maybe all the time, it's something that you wouldn't like to see within yourself. If they're ignorant, if they're rude, or if they're abrupt, you might think, oh, well, that wasn't the way I would handle it. You might not even think it consciously, but I think you wouldn't act that way. So you feel quite, you object to it. So that's where that feeling comes from. It's almost like a prickly feeling, isn't it? And I suppose our jobs as Stoics is not to react, and then, like stop ourselves before the reaction, having that pause, that peace of mind, just to go, hang on a minute, I'll just take a step back and just see what this actually is played out. Same in, I suppose, the other philosophies. They're like, they mirror the same thing. But yeah, like Stoicism really was the thing that I needed to change my life. And I remember reading that Letters to a Stoic twice, and the second time I went through with a highlighter just to make sure I didn't miss anything, make sure I didn't miss any lessons in there. And I refer back to it every now and again. Then I might pick something else. I might pick Cato up, or I might pick Epictetus' Discourses. I will say that Seneca would probably, Letters to a Stoic, like I found that like that's my favorite text, 100%. Yeah, great book, really great book.
That's so strange to say that. It for a long time I just avoided Seneca. I was hooked on Marcus Aurelius, and then went over to Epictetus, and I was like Epictetus is like even better. It's only recently I've gotten it actually into Seneca, and I think it's like that thing is where people say. Like no man steps into the same river twice. With books, it's like I read Seneca years and years ago, didn't really resonate with me, and then I was like, right, I'll just read Aurelius and stick with that. And then years later, I read Seneca now, and I'm like, it means something completely different, and I guess it meets you where you are in your life. You was talking then about like life-centered like teachers, like problems of teachers, and I love the way the Stoics view it is as sparring partners. and this can relate to Muay Thai, but it's like you asked for strength, so life's given you a sparring partner to help you build strength. Or like if you wanted wisdom, life gives you confusion, and you got to wrestle with this. You need a good sparring partner. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's so true. I like, it's good to refer back to Muay Thai because Muay Thai is like it's a beautiful art of a sport, and I suppose you could say boxing is too. Any pugilist sport in a way because it's like it's a dangerous game of chess, right? So like the thing with it is, especially in sparring as well, you're completely in the moment. Number one, because you couldn't be anywhere else, right? You've got to focus on the opponent in front of you, even if it's just sparring. It's very meditative, but also it's like you're trying to outthink your opponent. You're not trying to out hit them. You're trying to get 2 steps ahead of them. You might fake a move so that you can get an angle so that you can fire a shot off and it connect. And I suppose that's the dance of life, isn't it? They are sparring partners in a way. The similarities are there. I think as well as that, like, is a really interesting point as well, and a really interesting quote that I picked up the other day. And this guy was just, I'm not sure if I was watching it on, it was just a video I was watching on maybe on social media. And he said, you don't get what you've prayed for. You get the opportunity to practice what you've prayed for. So you might be praying for more patience and stillness, and then you might meet the irrational guy in the garage when you're putting fuel in, and he just comes up and he's all up in your face, and you're like, whoa, I'm gonna have to have patience with this person. It's about recognizing those moments, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's so true, and that's sort of the way I see it. It's like you're saying, that pause is like life gives you this thing, and we're kind of hardwired from our past to sort of just deal with things instantly, and a lot of times that's dealing with it in a negative way. Our ego craves that like instant reaction, and you don't deal with it so well. So you have that little pause, that little space. As Viktor Frankl calls it, like our freedom. We have that to go, hold on a second, let's analyze it. And at the start, when you first, I suppose, get in the journey of understanding yourself and philosophy, that kind of thing, you might not have the best tools to deal with it, but at least you've made a pause and thought about it. But then after years of like gaining, well, that's the way I see it, as like tools. And I think the Stoics call it like the doctor has their tools for surgery, and you start to develop your tools on how to deal with things. So you learn the dichotomy of control, you learn amor fati, you learn to be present, you learn gratitude. And then when life faces you with this annoying person that you prayed for, you have a pause, and then all these tools come rushing in, and you can deal with it.
Yeah, so true. And in Epictetus' discourses, he talks about working the wood as if you're a carpenter, and like you keep working that wood like your block. You keep working the block over and over again. Same way, like if you're a scaffolder or a labourer, you'd have to go and do the task 1,000 times over before you got it right. It's the same with your morals and your God, I lost the word. And your virtues, you've still got to practice them out in the real world. And if you're not practicing them out in the real world, how do you expect your blade to be sharp? It's got to be sharpened over time. Iron sharpens iron. So that's the same with sparring, actually. We say that in sparring. It's like you go down, you spar someone good. Fantastic. You're sharpening your tools. And I suppose that's the same with practicing your virtues on people who are challenging. And that's you an opportunity to practice those and sharpen your tools.
Yeah, I love that, because I was reading Stoicism for a long time, and I was entrenched in self-help as well, just reading it. And I know so many people do this. I've been reading Stoicism for years, and they're still the same person. And I kind of say, like, it's because you're reading it, you're not practicing it. Like, if you want courage, you have to use courage. Like, courage isn't an easy thing. Like, it's never easy to be courageous. Like, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of courage. And it's like temperance and wisdom and like, being caring to people. It's like it's very difficult, especially if you've never used it. Just like Muay Thai is difficult, especially when you've never practiced it. But over time, you'll get better, and it never really becomes easy. But you certainly get better at it.
Yeah, well, yeah, 100% doesn't get easy. I think because like the challenges are always there. I was talking to a friend yesterday actually, and he was like faced with a challenge in his life, and I was like, the challenges don't go away. Like, they never go away. It doesn't matter what the challenge is. There's always going to be a challenge. Like, you can go and sit in a room by yourself. Let's say you sit in a padded cell and there's no windows and you're in a straitjacket and you can't get out. But the challenge then becomes your mind. Like there's no escape from challenge. You're always faced with challenge. So it's Marcus Aurelius would say be optimistic, but also know that the obstacle is the way at the same time. And it's that mindset, like you say, it's a switch of that mindset where you go from woe is me, why me, everything's happening to me, and you go, oh, it's all happening for me, and I get to use it subjectively to really influence my growth in life and become a better person, maybe change my stature, maybe change how I live and how I approach people.
Yeah, I've given this advice to people, and they've sort of said, "Oh, it's easy for you to say this," which it kind of is now, but it wasn't easy for me to say, especially when I was just miserable and so pessimistic. I would have said the exact same thing. Like, oh, it's easy for you to say this, like the obstacle is the way. Like I'm stuck in this place. So I think this is the biggest difficulty in a lot of people's lives, certainly for me, is like, how do you get out the trench? Like, how did you, when you was acting on vices, being hedonistic, living a life of vice or whatever, how did you go from there and actually incorporate Stoicism into your life? How did you start to live in accordance with virtue and become a good person?
And there's a good way is desperation, like I said. And for me, it was like there was no way out, and I had to find something to help me as a crutch for life. There was that. And then so after reading the text, it was inspiration, that I could live more stoically, more with virtue at heart. And if I live this clean life, this good life, that everything would fall in place around me. Initially, I was searching for something. And Stoicism happened to be it. And then, like, as I read through the text, I've been reading through them, and I'm going, this isn't me. It's not me, but like, this is me, and I'm doing this right now. And you've probably done the same, William. Is like you go through and you read a certain passage, and you go, how synchronous is this? I'm actually feeling this today, and it's like he's telling me my life, and this is what's happening in my life right now. And then you apply it, and it's like these aha moments ping in your brain. It's like these epiphanies. It's like, oh, okay, that was it all along. And it's I'd have said, and you're right. So it's really hard to get out of that position, that mind frame where you're sort of stuck and nothing. You can't be told. I think it's something you have to find yourself. I think, like, someone, if I go over to, let's say I go to a friend and they're in desperation mode, and I say, oh, have you tried reading this book? They're just going to say, we want me to read a book that's going to help me. So I need, like, actionable tools, right? And like, well, if you action these tools, but if you're not willing to see, like, you've got a barrier up, and if you're not willing to, I suppose, action some stuff at the time, nothing will change. Yeah, it's really hard to get past that barrier. Really hard.
Yeah, I can't speak for you, but I think something interesting that occurred to me is, do you think it's the lack of guidance or role models? It's like when you're younger, you're just seeing role models as celebrities, I suppose. Like, they're living a good life. How did they get to the life? Hedonism. Like, their good life is drinking, partying, models, drugs, all that kind of stuff. And then that's all you're seeing, especially if, I like I say, I can't speak for you, but if you don't have a role model growing up, they become your role model and you follow their direction. And I suppose it's hard to then, like you said, someone goes, well, read this book. You're like, well, no, I don't care about a book. I'm trying to live this life. And when I seen Marcus Aurelius, I know he's like this image, it's not a real person, but in my head, this Roman statue is the symbol of strength. That's how my 18-year-old mind seen it, as like this great Roman emperor. He's a strong man, great leader, good man. He says he was living a good life, and he's telling me how to do it. Surely it's worth listening to.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And I think, like, at the minute we've got this celeb culture where, like, think of, I won't name any names, but there's like, there's celebrity shows, there's reality TV, and like they're really just pushing, especially on the younger generation, these like hedonistic ways, like, cheat on your partner, like, let's have a sneaky conversation or a kiss behind the bush or whatever, these sort of things. And like, they're looked at and they're watched regularly. These things have to imprint on an impressionable mind, right? And it's and everyone's doing it, and you want to be seen as within your peers to do the same thing. So it's, if you don't have the role model, it's definitely your peers, 100% your peers, and especially when you're younger, like, you want to be part of the in crowd, and you're going to do what your peers do. As you get older and hopefully start to think for yourself, and if like certain habits aren't serving you well anymore, you open up your mind to introspective thought and go, well, actually, are these things serving us anymore? Do I have can I change? Can I be more? Can I grow? I think it's really hard to make a break. It's really hard to be lonely. It can be quite lonely when you do make a break from that as well, from like that side of society, and you go from hedonism. I mean, when I changed, I don't know if you're the same, William, Matt, when I changed and decided to enact all these virtues and implement them into my life, I had to sort of drop some friends, and they're still great people, but they are still living similar life to what they were living. They're kind of stuck on the drink, they might be partying, they might be taking drugs. And I kind of like distance myself from them, not because I don't like them anymore, but because for me, I needed to get out of that circle so that I could sustain the life that I'm trying to live and enact the stuff that I'm learning, and that was really hard. It can be quite lonely, that process.
Yeah, it's certainly lonely. I think for me, it was lonely in a different sense of, and it might be like for you, but it's sort of like you have this guide, this like moral compass, this beacon to follow, that's your life, and whether it's good or bad, at least it was comfortable, it led you in a certain direction. And when I decided to really veer off that path, it is like stepping into the void. Like there's no direction. And I suppose people say, how do you know you're on the right path? Well, you don't see the path because you're walking it, you're creating it. And that's kind of how it feels like. You're just walking into the void with hope. And it's like you said, I think it is just desperation. Like for me, I got to such a point where I was like, this even though I've accepted that this is life, surely it can't be life. Like I'm looking around and people are happy. Like they got there somehow. Surely I can have that. And it is just like desperation and hope and walking into the void. And like you said earlier, it's like you get a little like win under your belt. Like you try a little technique and you're like, whoa, that actually worked. Like when I tried gratitude, I was like, I don't feel the emptiness anymore. Like this is it. I'm just going to follow this to a T and it will lead me somewhere better. And sure enough, the person I was 10 years ago, if they looked at me now, they wouldn't believe it. They'll be like, how can you be happy? How can you be confident? How can you not have anxiety all the time? It doesn't make sense. And I would say it was Stoicism. I just I followed it to a T and look where it's got me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well is it like even that younger version of William or younger version of myself too would look at us now and probably would be like, who do you think you are? I know mine certainly would, and it'd be quite adverse to all the stuff that I do and teach now, and the breathwork and meditation and stuff as well. And I think it's like it is those little wins that fill your cup, because it's totally the opposite compared to the hedonism. You're filling your cup all at a time and it's overflowing, and before you know it, you're completely swamped in water and you're drowning. And then the opposite is true for getting those little wins in Stoicism, getting those little wins with a breath work, with a yoga in, with some discipline in, and you're filling your cup, and it's like a drop at a time until it's full to the brim, and then you can pour into someone else's cup, or you can pour into another cup of your own, and it is that drop at a time which really makes a difference.
Yeah, I like that. The way I think I did a video recently where I was describing it. I don't know if it's quite correct, but in my head it makes sense. Is like I used to try and fill the cup with all this external water, say, and I was just trying to fill it, trying to get as much as possible, thinking like if I'm full, I'm happy. And now I sort of see it as like it's like a lantern, and you're a small flame within, and you're filling yourself from within. Like happiness is an inside job. It's like you're igniting that flame from within, and then you can share that light with other people.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Almost like you're blowing on the embers of a fire, and you're like adding a bit of kindling at a time before you've got a raging fire, but it's like everyone's around it, keeping warm. I like that. It's a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah, when you're saying about like social media and like TV today is like the way it is, that's what's really lit a fire under my belly, with getting back on doing these podcasts, talking more about Stoicism, really pushing my passion for Stoicism, because I lost a bit of the passion just because for this platform, because it wasn't getting any outreach, wasn't like it was taking up a lot of time, and I was like, is it actually helping anyone? But then I follow a lot of Stoic pages, and they've all turned to, they sell the pages for ad space, and now they're sharing like gambling or OnlyFans content that it was once Stoicism. And yeah, it's lit a fire in my belly, because I'm like, people are really aspiring for the wrong thing. Like you were saying, they're pushing towards lust as like a quirky, fun little thing. And I hear it in conversation now.
It's like cool to be that. It's like cool to it's really like, and we've really got to bring it back to where it's like, it's cool to be loyal. It's cool to be strong, to be mindful, to talk with passion, and truth, and be outspoken, but like and assertive, but not rude or angry or or do your best mate over a woman or anything like that. It's really cool to be a just person, to be a good person. How do you bring that back in? That's the question. How do you go from hedonistic society where we're showed what we want all the time? I mean, AI, for example, got AI bloody OnlyFans people out there. They're not even real, and like people are lusting over these things. How do you draw that back? And there's also the little bit of bro culture, even kind of say it, bro culture around Stoicism, where it's like, it's too bro. I can't think of a better word than bro, but like it's too toxic masculine, where it's like it's gone the other way. So it's about being nice and centered. There's a balance between you can go and have a bit of pleasure, but like know that you need to come back to center. You can go and be part of the mob, and but come back to center. You can go and make a mistake, but come back to center. And then the other way, don't go too far down the other way where you're judging and you think you're better than other people by being a stoic. There's a real balance in the middle.
Yeah, I'd like to actually get to that. I call like the misunderstanding of stoicism, the broicism as they like to call it. But yeah. I think in terms of that, people aspire to a certain role model, and I was just thinking now when I was a kid, the role models I had is like I watched like Never Back Down because I love Never Back Down, and I in my eyes I seen he got what he wanted because he worked really hard. And I watched a lot of films like that where it's like they got what they wanted because they worked so hard. So even though I was miserable, hated life, I worked incredibly hard. Like discipline was everything for me because I could control my discipline. And that was sort of my guide, even though I was still disciplined going in the wrong direction. And I think people go down this hedonistic life. I think they get to a point, at least for myself, and I think it's different for everyone, where you question it. You're like, this isn't making me happy. You wake up with a hangover and you're like, there has to be something more than this. And then they'll look for answers. In desperation, they'll scroll Instagram looking for just a bit of comfort, and then they're met with more hedonism. So it doesn't really help them. They're like, oh, I had a night out, it was brilliant, and then they're like, oh, I'll just have another night out, it'll fix this. But I think if this is why it's a little fire under my belly, because if I can just at least have a platform where people can see it, when they're looking for a few answers and they see someone such as yourself saying like stoicism made me happy, like, and then they're like, whoa, this random guy might have been in a similar situation to me, he's found happiness for it, it's worth trying out. They might try it out, go off it, come back to it like the fight, I suppose. But I think just being there is like a beacon of hope, I suppose. Like that's what stoicism was for me. It was like a beacon of hope that I could look towards and go, that is a guide to the good life. I'm gonna just try it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, do you know what as well? It's like it's continued to make me happy. It's continued. The lessons continue. Like they don't end. And I'm like, you don't just get a guidance set of principles and go, okay, I'm set now for life, and like I can just live this way. It continues to make me happy. I continue to read, like you said before about reading the book, and you read the book again, you get a whole new book, and it's like I'm still learning new lessons and applying them to my life, and they continue to make me happy. And I'm continuing to work on myself through that, and it improves my relationships. It improves. It's going to improve my relationship with my daughter as well. So like as she grows up, she can see a stoic father. He's not, I suppose, broicism, unemotional and callous. Like I'm well involved in my emotions. I give her as much love as I possibly can. However, there's some rules to my life where I'm like, I won't do certain things and I won't live a certain way, and that's cool, because with these rules comes purpose, and with the purpose comes fulfillment, and and I'm just learning. It's an ever quest, isn't it? I think I really love that, and it's the same with Muay Thai. It's like you're always the student. There's no belt system in Muay Thai. There's no grading system. Like in Thailand, they're just like, you just train, and it's just like you're just learning forever. You're never the master. You could be called a crew or a master, but really a real master will probably turn around and say, I'm still a student. I'm still learning to this day. I've got a teacher still, and I'll go to my teacher and they'll teach me. My teacher's teacher teaches them. And it's EverQuest.
I love it. I never knew Muay Thai didn't have belts, but yeah, like Marcus Aurelius, he was studying well into his old age. Even when he was sick, he was attending lectures, like, because he understands, like, you're always learning, always growing. So I think it's interesting, Epictetus talks about the purple thread, where it's like, you got the white toga and then you have the purple thread going through it, and it makes the whole toga stand out just by being purple. And I think, like you say, for your daughter, for the world around you, you're being the purple thread by practicing what you're preaching. Is I always think one thing that annoys me is when parents are telling kids, don't do this, don't go on social media, don't procrastinate, stop gossiping. Yeah, and they're like this, gossiping, and then the kid wants to join in the gossip and they say gossiping's bad. It's like, kids aren't listening to you, they're looking at you, they're looking for that purple thread.
Yeah, so true, so true. I think you've got to like emulate it, and that's stoicism, right? That's action it, and really action it, and in Epictetus' discourses, the running theme through that was like, like I'm not a fan of these, philosophers who just speak of philosophy and they go to be heard and they go to be lectured. Give me a philosopher who's really acting it, and I can see it through his actions. Cato was a prime example. He was like, like as stoic as they come, according to the other philosophers. When you read of other philosophers, they always talk of Cato being like, a stern stoic. And he keeps coming back to that in Epictetus' discourse. He's saying like, be the thing you say you are. Carl Jung would say, you're not what you say you do, you're what you do. The actions that you do every day. That's who you really are.
Yeah, it's funny. Stoicism led me to Jung, which like reading his work, I did a 6-week course online as well, just out of pure interest, and it blew my mind, opened my eyes to a completely different world. But before, it's so strange, and my entry in Stoicism was this misconception of Stoicism. So I remember reading a quote in the Meditations that was, to be like the rock that the waves crash upon, it stands unmoved. And in my head, I was like, I feel weak, I feel like I'm being pushed around, I want to be that rock, just unmovable. And it got me into this fake stoicism where it's like, I'm just going to be emotionless, strong, whatever. But after a while, just reading more, I was like, okay, I was kind of wrong, but now I understand a bit more. But then it just opened my eyes a lot more to being way more open with my emotions, like understanding my emotions, not just suppressing them. Like I genuinely believed, and it was still quite recently, I did a video on this because it was interesting. It's like, I genuinely believed most of my life I didn't have anger. Like anger did not exist within me. And I was talking to someone one day and I was saying to her, I was like, I don't get angry. I don't have it. And she was like, well, everyone gets anger. It's like a normal basic function of being human. And she's like, what do you get? I was like, well, I'm anxious all the time. I got migraines. And she was like, yeah, you are suppressing your anger. And it's just like, that's how you're expressing it. But it's just funny. Stoicism made me way more open to a lot of things that I would have considered to be just like spiritual mumbo jumbo. Like I would have never read about Taoism or Zen. But now it's like, it's fascinating. It's changing my life.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's it. And I think like open up yourself to philosophy as a whole, and I probably alluded to it in the text as well. Is like keep studying philosophy, no matter what the philosophy is. You don't have to apply everything. Not everything you read has to be something that actually, stays with you. But like it might resonate with you a little bit, and if it does a little bit, then it's done its job. I'm actually reading "Have the Courage to Be Disliked" by I'm going to butcher the name. It's Ichiro Kishimi. That's got to be wrong. But they're talking about Alderian psychology in it, which I find really interesting. So like as an aside from Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, they believe that your past creates your future, right? But Alderian psychology believes that like you get to decide in that moment exactly who you are, which is really interesting. So like the past doesn't exist anymore, like you make a decision. So the running theme behind it is, or the actual theory is that like we're all trying to fulfill a goal, and that goal is, even if it's something that really like isn't good for self, it's like let's say I avoid doing this podcast with you because I'm anxious, but like really I'm fulfilling the goal of thinking that I'm not liked, or I won't be heard, or my voice isn't worth speaking. Those things. And it's like we've all got these goals that we're trying to achieve, even if they don't really help us out in the long run. So it's about deciding who you are in the moment, and then setting a new goal, which is more, to improvement or to the person you want to become. So like your past doesn't really exist. So it's just interesting. I'm not saying I'm completely taken on board with it, because they're saying that trauma doesn't exist in a way, that you've kind of accepted the trauma, and like the trauma is then, once you've accepted it, it becomes yours. But I think we know that like traumatic events can, affect the mind on a neurological level and stuff as well. So, but interesting nonetheless. But another philosophy to sort of add in there, or take some parts out of it, or not use it at all, whatever it may be. Just interesting to keep the studying going.
Yeah, no, when you're speaking, it was quite interesting to me. I was trying to, maybe it's something I look into, but that's certainly, I've been way more open-minded to, like, I'll try out something, learn about it quite a bit, and after a while I might be like, it's a bit, I think that's completely wrong, or I think this, or I can take this out of it, I can take that out of it. But something I want to get on on topic of is this misconception of Stoicism. Because I think I've heard you explain it correctly. Well, I've heard you talk about this misconception of Stoicism being, being emotionless, being this just cold, harsh person. And I think a lot of people, certainly when I try, I have people come to me saying, looking for help or looking for guidance, and I try to recommend Stoicism. I try not to be too pushy, because I know what it's like when you're in times of desperate and then someone's pushing something upon you. But I just talk about Stoicism and they're like, oh, Stoics are just this callous, harsh person. And that's certainly what I believed a long time ago. And you see a lot of these influencers spreading Stoicism, saying, which completely wrong. Most of it's just go against, don't like women, keep your head down, forget everyone else, bottle up your emotions, just get on with your own shit. And that's completely false. So can you just clear up this misconception, basically just explain what Stoicism is properly?
Absolutely. Well, it's that's that lone wolf stuff, go be a lone wolf, but actually Stoicism is about for the good of the people. You're part of the collective, and you've got to add into the collective. That's your job as a human. And it's about being reasonable. So we're sitting on the fence and we're watching, and we're not getting involved emotionally, but so we can make the right decision on things. And for me, Stoicism is really a guidance set of principles where it's actually they want you to be emotionless. They don't want you to be emotionless. They want you to really understand your emotions and then not act in moments of passion, but also express them as well. I think where this misconception comes from as well is passages they talk about grief quite a bit, and if because death being a natural cause of life, don't grieve because, it's so natural to lose someone, it's nature's way. And I think that does seem quite callous, that to not be able to grieve, to sort of put that to one side and, don't grieve for your wife because, it was coming to an end. I think that could be misconstrued, But really, I think Stoicism teaches you to be more open to people, to be more understanding of people, to be understanding of people's ignorance, to be understanding of people's ability to be better than you at something, or just that they've got something to teach you as well. And try and really open your mind up to other people's philosophies too. Go and listen to more people and talk about their philosophy. Go and understand a new subject. I think Stoicism as well doesn't just run in Greek texts and in Roman texts as well. You've got to think about texts like the Book of Five Rings. Now that's a fantastic book. And he was a swordsman, and he's talking about putting your sword style. He was sword style was unbeaten. 62 fights he had. I can't remember his name now, but he had 62 fights he had, and he was unbeaten swordsman in the two sword style. But also, say again.
Was that Musashi?
That's him, yeah. And he was on about putting that into everything else you do too. So putting that conviction, putting that discipline into a tea ceremony, into art, and then he sort of was saying that you can do all the things as long as you use the same ethos behind it to apply to these other things, and it'll all fall into place that way. And it's live that way, and it'll all come into play. Yeah, I'm not sure if I've done a very good job of explaining that there.
I think no, you did. We'll stay on that topic because, like you're saying, I think people forget is the Meditations was a personal diary. Epictetus, all his work was written down by his student, and from what we can gather is Epictetus was quite funny. He had a lot of humor. He said things for effect. He could be quite extreme at times to get his point across. He was frustrated as well with like you were saying earlier, the sophists, the people that just, they didn't practice what they preached. They were just trying to get big crowds and talk good, which is basically what we're seeing now on social media is people that can speak eloquently, emotionally driven, they get a crowd behind them, but actually the substance is terrible. So that's sort of changes it a little bit. But I think just reading the Stoics after a while, you understand it's not about being emotionless. But a lot of men, especially mainly with the older generation, but they're very attached to this idea that emotions are for women and men cannot be emotional. And I know a lot of men that genuinely believe this. And if you start talking about the Stoics said, accept your emotions, Marcus Aurelius was publicly seen crying quite a few times and very openly, not trying to hide it or anything. And he's supposed to be this leader, and probably at a time where it was not cool to cry. I mean, it's not seen as cool to cry. I mean, what's your thoughts on, I suppose, like manliness?
Well, it's a tough one to answer, isn't it? Because we're kind of learning what manliness is again, because we've gone through like an era of stiff upper lip. We're British, and you bottle up your emotions. But like, look at the state of the mental health, especially men's mental health. Suicide for men, I think it's 75% of suicides are men, and there's this loneliness epidemic of men as well. And it's the statistics don't lie, do they? We see it in the causality of what's going on, and it's like, really what it is to be a man to me is to embody that masculine, be that protector, be strong, look after your physical body as well as your mental health and everything else that comes with that. I feel like looking after your spiritual health is important too, but I also feel like you owe it to yourself to learn about yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself and give that to your family, give that to your friends. And I believe in expressing my emotions. They might not always come out the way I want them to, and I might have to reapproach it next time. Maybe we're all prone to a bit of anger every now and again, and we might lose our rag over some small task that we're trying to complete, and it just happens. That's life. But it's coming back and understanding where that anger is coming from, and really understanding yourself. I coach people quite regularly and help them with like philosophical insights into their life, and we do breath work and we do other modalities during the coaching process. But I always come back to this place where I'm like, I must be working on myself to help them work on themselves too. So I regularly go to counselling, and I just want to understand my emotions and where they come from and why I'm feeling this way. And having that introspective eye on myself allows me to first look after myself mentally, spiritually, physically, also then the people around me, but also when I'm going and doing the coaching, it gives me more tools to help them, but a better understanding of myself leads to a better understanding of their self too. And it really, being a man for me is know thyself, really know yourself, really have a look into the dark places, shine a light on the shadow, and understand the places that you're suppressing, the emotions you're suppressing. They fester and they lead to other things in life, like anxiety, led to anxiety for you, anger led to, when I was a youth, led to bouts of rage, like flipping out, and I had to find something to channel that, which ended up being Muay Thai. So really understanding yourself as a man is important. And I think it's like, you can be all those masculine things. You can be a protector. You can look after your family. You can be the provider. You can work the only job, and however you see it being a man. But also, if you neglect the other side of you, the emotional side, the spiritual side, then it's going to come apart somewhere. I think that's what probably midlife crisis looks like. You've been taught to live a certain way. To be a man, you have to be these things. Like don't cry here, don't say this there, don't do that there, and you're just putting it in your pot all the time. What happens? And eventually the pot overflows because you've suppressed it for so long. And I think that's what a midlife crisis probably is. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, when I was younger, I was drinking a cocktail and I got criticised by a load of men for drinking a cocktail. I was like, but it's nice. And I was like, yeah, well, it's nice, but men don't drink them. And I was like, it's just funny, the things you associate with being a man. And when you live by all these rigid rules, you probably get to a point, like you said, midlife crisis, where you're breaking. You're just like, why am I stuck in this rigid way of living? But my most important goal in my life right now, and I think it probably will be forever, is like the process of self-realization. Because like you said, like if I can hack away all these things, look, like shine light, like say, onto my shadow, start understanding myself better. I can be my better self for the people around me. I think I owe it to myself, I owe it to them, I owe it to the world. So that's kind of my greatest pursuit. But I see it, especially in the building game, there's like a lot of men that will criticize the younger generation for being emotional, for being emotional, yeah. And then you see them somewhere down the line, excessive drinking, filled with rage. I'm like, that's emotional. Like rage is an emotion. You're being very emotional. It's just you've bottled up all these little things, and it just comes out in ways that you see as manly. Like rage and anger and drinking, it's seen as a manly thing for some reason. Like I'm not. I don't want to get confused. It's not manly, but it's seen by a lot of people as a manly thing. Like it's acceptable to be angry, it's acceptable to have rage sometimes, it's acceptable to drink in excess, but it's not acceptable to talk about your feelings, it's not acceptable to be caring or empathetic.
Yeah, and I like, and it is vulnerability in a way. That rage is makes you vulnerable. You know, it makes you vulnerable to criticism, makes you vulnerable to being hurt, it makes you vulnerable to getting in trouble. You know, like people lose their families to rage, right? You know, and they lose their families to drinking too. And how is that masculine? That doesn't seem like masculine to me. You know, like masculine to me is more, I know I'm going to be home on time, and I'm not going to just go away with the lads and drink a load of beers and not turn in. You know, like I know my daughter can depend on me. That's masculine. You know, that's stoicism. That's being there, being dependable. I'm always reliable. I'll always be there. And it also, as well, is like the knock-on effect. I think that they allude to it all the time in the Stoic text, and it's you're doing it not just for yourself. You know, yes, it's for yourself right in that moment. You know, you're not probably not thinking with a perspective of like I'm doing it for the greater good, but actually, like everything you do for yourself feeds into the greater good. It feeds into your family. You know, like every time you show up and like your family trusts you, you've fed into that. And then my daughter, your daughter, for example, you know, like they trust you, and then they go away and trust in relationships, and then they have a great relationship with their partner. Their partner has a family and passes that down the line. Like what you're doing for yourself, and people say, "Oh, you're being selfish. You're spending all that money on yourself, doing a course, and you know all that time yourself, meditation." I ain't got the time for that. Like, when do you have the time? Like, you know, do you have the time when you're in a cell? Do you have the time when you've lost your family? Like, you know, make the time, or you know, or lose the time, right? So it's not just for yourself, you know. Anything you do on yourself is actually for everyone else too. You know, the work you do on yourself is for everyone else.
Yeah, I love that. It's my book, the American version of my book. I don't know if you can see it. It's got like you definitely can't see it. It's got the circles. Can you see the
Oh yeah, I
circles?
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
the circles of concern, higher Hierocles' circles of concern, where it's like the small circle is self, then it goes to close family, then it goes to like friends, then it goes to all the way to the whole world. And it's like you have the concern for yourself, you work on yourself, and then you can it starts passing out, I suppose. Like the way you described it made a lot more sense. It was quite good how you described it. The conscious self, that's your like
Yes.
yes. So what are you doing there, and like how do you incorporate stoicism into that? Because I know you do a lot of like breath work and meditation.
Well, it's funny because most of my teachings are based on yogic philosophy. I've been to India and I've done my yoga teacher training out there, and done other breathwork training and modalities over here as well. And what I suppose that you were talking about, like what your goal is in life. I think my goal is to, I mean, it's kind of in the title of what the business is, and it's like become a more conscious version of yourself. You know, give yourself that pause that we've alluded to a few times, and it's like give yourself that pause, have some introspective thought, and become authentic. Authenticity is your highest vibration, in my opinion. You know, when you're authentic, you can live life on your terms, and you have no shield to hide behind. You know, you don't need a shield because you feel present with yourself. You feel you love yourself enough to be authentic, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is give people the modalities, number one, to be more still so they can have the introspective thought. Number two, as well, is the philosophical side, where I'm like alluding to or giving them philosophical insights that they can apply to their lives, which I do in the writing and stuff, when I'm writing posts and stuff, or when I'm teaching through coaching. I'm like, look, apply this lesson, give it a go, come away with it, and see how you feel at the end of it. And for the most part, like, you know, it really works. I think the hard divide is when people don't act on it afterwards, you know, and it's always that action thing, which is like the whether it works or not, you know, whether they come to, I suppose, to consciousness. And it's not what I'm doing isn't about being enlightened. You know, I've been asked a few times, what's the name the conscious man on your Instagram handle all about? And like, do you think you're a conscious man? And I said, I'm a conscious version of myself, you know, like that's what I am. I'm not the conscious man, as if I'm like, you know, like I'm going to levitate if I close my eyes, you know, it's more about I'm conscious with my life. And when I'm unconscious, I understand that I've been unconscious, and I try and rectify that and be more conscious going forward, and just have that inward eye, that introspective eye, so that I'm living life as consciously as I can and helping those as a result when I do my teachings too.
Yeah, I mean, like something you said there about your title on Instagram. I've had in the past that I'd never wanted to associate with being stoic. Like I teach stoicism, but I'm not stoic. And recently I've been trying to actually like claim that title just for myself, because, and I think it's important because I've seen people say online, like criticize others saying, oh, you can't say you're stoic. But I think it's good to identify with something. Just when times get tough, I'm like, I can remind myself, like, I'm supposed to be stoic. Like, I'm stoic. I need to do this. Like, I can't just like pick and choose when it suits me. Like, this is my life. And like, people might say it's cringeworthy. People might say it's like, not earned. Like, I can't claim to be stoic. I haven't lived a life stoically or whatever. But it really helps me when I identify with it, is just to like, I'm stoic. Let's do it the way the Stoics do it. Something that came to attention, you was talking about living authentically, is that's probably one of my biggest struggles. It's something I'm really trying to face recently. And I think it's because I lived my life as a people pleaser. So I never knew what authentic was. And I still am trying to like unravel that. I don't know if it's possible for you to explain how to live authentically or how to become your authentic self, but could you explain that now?
Yeah, like, well, I think authenticity has grown over time as well. I think like you're never the same version of yourself over time, and you're allowed to change. So, being your most authentic version of yourself right now, I would kind of say it feels like an impossible task really to be quite authentic, because like I suppose authenticity means that you're who you are all the time to every single person you meet, and you're unwavering in that. And that was what I consider authenticity. But and I know you've got to wear certain masks in life to be, to play a role, to play a part. You're a different person to your partner as you would be to, I don't know, let's say the guy you rent your unit off. Like you've got to play certain roles in life. But I think it's more to do with having those core values and principles, especially with the Stoicism. They're the running theme through your life. That's authenticity. Because like you said, like you were talking about courage before, it's like you're never going to be the most courageous person in the room, and you're also never going to not have fear. You've still got to show up and be courageous despite the fear. And it's the same with being authentic. Like, be authentic despite everything that's going on in your life. Keep running those virtues through your life. Keep working those virtues through your life, and be authentic to those, and hold yourself true to them. And through that, you can live authentically. It's a real challenge to live authentically, I believe. Like it's like we spend a lot of time wearing masks and trying to figure out who we are. And I think, like, especially through your teens and you get into your 20s, and you're only really figuring it out when you get into your 30s. I'm 36 now. And I really feel like I've stepped into this authentic self where I'm doing something I love. There is still days I question, am I working from the ethos of the conscious self? And I have to question myself, but that brings me back in line with the things that I want to live authentically with. So it's a dance. Authenticity is a dance.
I like that. Do you ever see any, like with the people you work with, do you ever see, I suppose you see transformations, but is there any that stick out to you where it's like, someone comes to you a certain way and then within X amount of time, they're completely shifted?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it with my coaching quite a lot. And there is that like, sometimes a coaching client will come to me and they don't do the things I ask them. And I can't help people who can't help themselves, and that's not me being harsh. It's just true, if nothing changes, right? But the people that really commit to the process, that go away and do the tasks that I give them, that really challenge themselves, that really like have an inward gaze on themselves and look at themselves and go, all I'm doing is holding in a mirror, right? I'm like, this is the mirror here, and these are the things that you need to work on. You might not like looking at them, but like, trust me, if you do these things, like, things are going to change. And the transformations you get with that, like, are unbelievable. A lady I was working with recently, she was completely distraught, lost all vision for her life, like depressed, anxious, unhappy every day. And we just started the process of like, okay, like, sit with these things, write them down, and then enact these lessons that I'm now teaching you. And now she's gone out and done a yoga teacher training in India. She quit a job that she absolutely was miserable at and hated, and she got a nice bit of severance for that. So she's able to now focus solely on her yoga, and she's getting married, and her life's just changed completely. And it was like, and she's like, oh no, I owe it all to you. And I'm like, no, like, literally, like, it's literally all you. And all I did was this. Have a look in this and do this work, and trust me, it'll all come clean.
And that's I love to hear that, because that's incredible. Like, the work you're doing is like saving lives. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you. Same for you. You're teaching the Stoic wisdom that gives people the gifts to change. And live a better life. It's great. It's fantastic.
I mean, I always say, like, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just sharing this stuff in a way that made sense to me. And I believe there's loads of people out there that will understand me as opposed to a different teacher. Because I'm not coming up with anything new, just a different perspective and my way of sharing it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? They say that like nothing's new, right? They say nothing's new, but only the way you interpret it. And I think we're discovering ancient wisdom and then like resharing it. You know, everything that I've learned really is not mine. You know, I've been gifted it, and then like I think you owe it to everyone else as well. Once you've been gifted a lesson, and once you've learned a lesson, you owe it to the world to give it to someone else too. Like you've got to pass it on. That's part of the ever quest is like, you know, you get to gift it. You can't keep it. It's not yours. That wisdom isn't yours. You've got to share it.